So you can see all the little details that I've made here. These little L brackets are just cut out from this right angle. So you slice on one side on a corner, and then the other side, and they pop off like this. You can see I got 25 thou rod with 80 thou rod. I just drill out. Okay, it's easy to do. You start with a number 11 blade, start a little hole. I just drill out like that, and then I just slice them like cheese. Little ballast or insulator discs, and then I take a piece of 25 thou rod, roll a bead of glue onto it, and then slide the next washer over it. Okay, so I just want to throw this in for the OCD or the rivet counter, which is fine by me. Like you can call me rivet counter now and again, and then sometimes I just break away from it. Like it's just an attitude or a mood that a person drifts in and out of as far as I go. But there's nothing wrong with it being a rivet counter or being OCD about it if that's what floats your boat. So you can do this instead of the former way that I showed you, where you take a solid rod and you drill a hole if there's no tube that small, slice, 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 slice. And when you get into a momentum, you actually get pretty nice discs, and it's much faster than this way. However, this way you'll see you get really nice, clean, like thickness of discs. But you got to drill the holes though. And that can get messy and fiddly. But if you don't mind doing it, that's fine. I find the former way to be faster, this way to be cleaner, like you get a nicer disc. But you know, each to his or her own, whatever floats your boat. And this material here, and I'll show you the sizes this punch comes with, is 15 thou number 9015 sheet styrene, and that's the discs that come out. And they're pretty good. You just hammer away and this fills up with 10 or 12 and you just push them through, which I wished actually, now that I can review this, I wish this had more of a taper on the inside. I mean, it does have a slight taper, but it's rather sticky. It's not like a polished kind of stainless or anything. So this comes in different sizes. There's one other set larger than this, mini punch set that I got from Michael's Craft Store. Okay. It's called Art Minds Leather. It's from their leatherworking, but the leather tools they have now are junk. They're not even close to the ones that my dad had, you know, from the 50s, 60s, and 70s or whatever. So this goes from 2 mil up to 4.8 mil. You can cut discs from these punches, right? And they just unscrew, and then you can change the size, okay? So I just thought I'd share that with you. So, you know, whatever method you choose to cut discs, that's fine. Whatever you're happy with, all right? Cheers. In this case, I just use 5. Prototype shows 8, for example, or the photo. I only need 5. 8 takes up too much space because dimensionally you're never going to be bang on. So 8 would make them too long. And then all I do is take this and then nip it off, proud. And these eventually will get mounted on here like this. Okay. It's all scrap. It's all, these are the kind of things that don't really cost anything. Like once you get the packages of the right angle, you know, the tube, this is 5/32, which is 16 inches wide, which is prototypical diameter. For a pole and HO scale, you just up those ratios for S and O or reduce them for N. Some of these I pre-drill because it's easier, but some I just, when I'm prototyping one pole or building one pole, I just put it together because I like to weld the whole pole together while it's raw plastic for adhesion integrity. If I paint all the parts first, which doesn't make any sense to me at all, especially when they're small like this, how am I going to hold those parts and glue little painted parts on? You want to weld all these little parts together in raw plastic and then spray it down or hand paint it and pick out the pole so that it looks like this. Okay? It's made the same way. And then hand painted and then washes on here, all right? Okay, so I just want to point out a couple things along the way. It's just easier if I construct some of it and then talk about it. So you can see these brackets here, right? Like they're nothing fancy, but you can see how they start to dress the pole up, right? So they were cut as I've shown from this right angle. Whatever size you choose will dictate the size of the bracket and the width that you cut them. Okay, see? Okay, I just wanted to show you this ballast sort of build up here. So it's just scrap, right? So this is like 10 by 60 strip here, and then it's, you know, there's like a whole series of holes. I just measure it first, right? And then drill a strip all the way along gently on a piece of plywood. If you got a nice sharp drill bit, it'll go right through nicely and it won't blow the material out. I basically just, you know, cut these strips at a determined size, and then I just, you know, slide it over the rod, like in this case. These have basically dried for a while, so I can reef on them a bit. That's what I love about this solvent, is it's just really tough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide a rod at 25 thou, which is what these little ringlets or washes are on, through these holes. And then it'll have that sort of ballast look to them. And then these are for wires. I'll leave a little bit of a tail on the end of these so I can attach a wire to them as they run off to the cans, like the transformer cans, I guess, and then a little bit, and then clean them up and nip them off. Like I think I've mentioned this before, like I build out a model like this because I can actually hold it right, and I build things proud and long because it's all just eyeballed in. You won't really notice. It's not, look, this is not a, like if I built this, you know, like a 1/48 scale, let's say, or whatever, Well, then I'm going to pay attention more to, the increments and so on. But you can see clearly that these little washers, like, they're not even. And they're not even centered either, right? But nobody's going to know. Like, when all the rest of the gack and details on this and they're painted and weathered and standing on the layout, like, like it doesn't matter, right? Because the impact, an impression is there. So yeah, so while I'm on that, I just want to point this out, these transformers, because I did mention those, right? So these are just tube, whatever tube you choose, right, of size. Once again with a ruler, so like this would be an HO, it's about 2 feet across. And I just cut sections out and I sand them square. I use tape to cut them. I cut a whole bunch, pick the best out of a few. And then I just glue them down on a piece of scrap, press down, and then I let them cure up. And then I just basically trim them with scissors. I'll just sand them rough just so there's a little bit of an edge, right? I'll just show you here on this other one. So there's the scrap that I cut away, and then here's the top rim, right? Okay. And then I just basically just board sand and just clean it up from the top so I can see the circular shape of it. And then I can just watch the edge there. And then I just do the bottom ones, and then I've added a little piece of right angle scrap right there. And then this will be ready to glue on. I can probably glue this one on now, actually. So why don't I do that? So let's put it on, yeah, we'll put it on this side. We'll just put a bit of glue right here. Just slide it a little bit back and forth so it gets a nice bond. If you really want to, sometimes I like to squeeze and clamp. That really does it. That mushrooms out that plastic nice. So there you see the first, and here's a photo. I'll just pull up the one reference photo I'm working from. So there you see I've mounted the first can, see? All right. Cool, isn't it? And I'll attach one more here, one more there. I'll run a lot of these cables. You can use copper wire, thread, super small, like 15th thou or 10th thou rod if you want it more rigid. I like to build as much as I can with plastic because it takes paint so well, especially when you airbrush it. Copper, if you're going to use copper wire, I would recommend you just stroke it in sandpaper so it puts a tooth on it, so when you paint it, the paint will hold nice. You can use it. You can do the copper wires with brass, K&S brass. Like I'll show you how I do mine. These top insulators, you can make those from slicing rod and just rounding off the rod first cut, round off with sandpaper cut, or you can use beads too. I've used beads or jewelry parts that you find in craft stores. But you can see that it doesn't take, it just takes a bit of patience, right, to build out really cool looking poles, okay? Okay, so I want to show you how I do some of the electrical and conduit cables, etc. on these poles that you can see here. I've attached these lines. Okay, this is number 219 25 thou rod. Okay, not 20. I like to save 20 for smaller diameter, etc. But 25 works well for this here. See this? It's got a heavy coating on it, where it comes down from for the three-phase. And then it goes down into a PVC or ABS pipe down the side. But anyway, so I just take a piece of 25 thou, number 219, and I grab like a paintbrush like this one with a taper on it. And I basically just wrap the 25 thou like this. Just pull on it tight, okay? So you get that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I save all this because all these little pieces, I put them in a little bucket because they all come in handy. So I'm going to take a piece about like this. Okay, and you can see on that little bracket there were pre-drilled holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this up like that into place, see? And before I actually glue it into the conduit pipe section, which I'll show you on the other one, I just give it a shot of glue like that, just to set it so that it dries stiff and upright. Okay. And I'll show you with this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is grab these and then just nip them off. Like this one I'll nip off like that. And there's a little bit of an opening that I drilled in the pipe. So if you want to shape it more and sort of maintain a nice curve, then you can tack it to the pole. Okay, so I've covered this before, but I think I should maybe revisit it for those that maybe aren't aware. So this is how I do straps, brackets around conduit pipe, drain pipe, etc., right? As I go through quite a bit of this when I get into a piping binge or whatever, or pipe building bender. So 10 thou by 40 thou. For HO, I mean, it's beefy, but it shows well. And that's number 102. And just if you're curious as to how wide it is, if you put an HO scale ruler on it, it's actually about 3 inches wide. Okay, so it's a heavy strap for this, like in this case, I mean, okay? So I just start at first where I just tack and glue one end. And then I just press it down with a pick, right? Because it's soft, the solvent, like just put a pool of solvent and then just take your number 11 blade or a probe and just stick it on, or however you like to do it. And then I just press it in like that. I do a whole bunch like that. I just start them, see? And let them kick, and then I go do another, pole or whatever. And then what I do is I just pre-bend it, because somebody mentioned a while ago about, oh yeah, I tried this and it melted the strap and it broke. Well, you need to check the cement that you're using. I find that this plastic isn't super hot and it doesn't do that, but if you oversaturate a small profile piece of plastic, it's going to melt it. But once you do it a few times, you get used to it. But look here, I'll show you. Like, I'll put a good swath in there. Okay, and then I'll take this pick. I'll just take the shoulder of it and just push down like that. Okay, like see how it shapes it in the reveal there between the two conduit pipes? And that should hold after 5 or 6 seconds like that. Okay, so it's bent in there nice. I'll do one more from the other side like this. So pre-bend it. And take a little bit of cement. Try not to do it all in one go. Like, the trick is to do it in 2 or 3 stages. In this case, it will probably be 3 because there's 2 pieces of conduit to cover. And then push it down. And don't beat yourself up if you mess it up a couple times. That's the way it happens to everybody. Once you get into the groove, muscle memory takes over, and before you know it, you're wrapping poles right and left. Okay? So I'm going to let those dry because I don't want to add more cement on there, because that's what'll make it break, because you're softening this plastic too much. So let that kick and then do a bend, like just bend it around, and bend it around, do the same thing, you'll be done. And then what you do is, to clean it up, you leave a little bit of excess. Remember how I talked about that? And you just pop that off. And if you want, you can just poke a little hole in there just to simulate a rivet or whatever. Okay?